Quarter 2, Module 5. So after having a research problem in hypothesis, you need to make an outline of your research. No? So this blueprint is what we call the research design. So research design is a type of inquiry within qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods approach that provides specific direction to procedures. Others have called them strategies of inquiry. So it is also include collection of data, research timeline, and respondent use. So in this lesson, you learn the importance of knowing and writing literature review. You also learn ethical issues upon emerging into research. And it will focus on types and characteristics of a qualitative research design. What is good in this type of research is that it is open and flexible, allowing researchers modify their design so easy. So again, qualitative research design. So this topic, you can think about or imagine a portrait or painting as product of your interest, and you just simply ask yourself why the topic seems interesting for you, how will you achieve the product of your painting if ever, and list down your objectives and plans of achieving it. Now, the following are types of qualitative research design which could be used as technique in collection and analyzing data. Okay, so number one is the case study. Analysis of persons, groups, events, decisions, periods, policies, institutions of or other systems that are studied holistically by one or more methods. So it investigates a phenomenon within its real-life context. So what are the advantages? So we have more understanding on complex issues. We can apply variety of methodologies and sources to investigate a research problem. We can extend experience or add strength to what is already known through previous research. We can most widely used by social scientists to examine contemporary real-life situations and provide the basis for the applications of concepts. And we can provide detailed description of specific and rare cases. So how about the disadvantages? So listed here are some disadvantages in using a case study. So intense exposure to the study may bias a researcher's interpretation of the findings. Design does not facilitate assessment of cause and effect relationship. Vital information may be missing, making the case hard to interpret. The case may not be representative or typical of the larger problem being investigated. So example, in the study of Acosta, Aime and Alexander Acosta, entitled Seeing Through a Magnifying Lens, a qualitative inquiry of K-12 readiness of faculty members from higher education institution in the Philippines, adoption of the 12-year program of formal basic education. This is the readiness of college faculty members on how to deal the transition years of having no enrollees in college since high school were being added with 2 years more. This research provides a real-life understanding on the issue of K-12 implementation on education. Number 2 is ethnography. Study of cultural patterns of people and their perspective in a group. It also involves their beliefs, values, and attitude. And this will be an example. So as you can see here, the researcher took 2 years as participant in observing the pattern within the two groups engaging men's social words, belongingness, and sex relationship. Number 3 is the ground theory. No? It is a development of theory directly based and grounded in data collected by the researcher. So, it is an approach that generates and modifies a theory. So, we have an example here. Number 4 is narrative inquiry. So, this are tales of experience or imagination and come naturally to a human being. So we have an example also for the narrative inquiry. And for the last is the phenomenology. So a phenomenon is something you experience on earth as a person. So it is a sensory experience that makes you perceive or understanding things that naturally occur in your life, such as death, joy, friendship, caregiving, defeat, victory, and the like. So comparing to ethnography, phenomenology aims at getting a thorough understanding of an individual's experience for the same person's realistic dealings with hard facts of life. So ethnography aims at defining, describing, or portraying a certain group of people possessing unique cultural traits. So we have an example here. So lesson 2, the description of sampling in data collection. Actually, we have a discussions related to a sampling last time, no, in our previous lesson. The but this will be covered with the description itself and the data collection. So when we say data collection, it is an important in the aspect of research because researchers should choose the proper sampling method to answer what was asked in the research problem. Based on what we have here, according to Alicia Tuobila, sampling is a process used in a statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations taken in a larger population. And the methodology used to sample from a larger population depends on the type of analysis being performed. So again, don't forget, methodology used to sample from a larger population depends on the type of analysis being performed. So we have different types of sampling methods. So as what we discussed also in our probability statistics about sampling, that's why it's very important for us to understand the statistics and research at the same time. No? The probability sampling is a sampling technique in which sample from a larger population are chosen using a method based on the theory of probability. So we have, for instance, no? So a population of 1,000 members, each of these members will have 1 out to 1,000 chances of being selected to be part of a sample. So it gets rid a bias in the population and gives a fair chance to all members to be included in the sample. That is probability sampling. Under probability sampling, actually, no, we have what we call simple random sampling. Okay? So, method of collecting data where every single member of the population is chosen randomly, merely by chance, and each individual has the exact same probability of being chosen to be a part of a sample. So, most commonly, what we're going to do here, we just, for example, you are 54 in a class. So, we write all your names in a piece of paper. Then, I'll put your paper in a box. Then, of course, getting one by one, that is, for 54, for example, I'm just only get 5 for recitation. So, just pick one in a box. Then, automatically, you choose to present your ideas related to the subject matter. So, that is simple random sampling. The cluster sampling is a method where the researchers divide the entire population into sections or clusters that represent a population. Cluster identified and include a sample on the basis of defining demographic parameters such as age, location, sex, and others. So this cluster sampling, for example, since you came from different track, no? So ABM, ICT, HE, UMS, no? STEM, and others, no? So what we're going to do, for example, we just simply get, for example, a 5 from STEM, 5 from ABM, 5 and so on and so forth. Okay? How about the systematic sampling? A method where members of a sample are chosen at regular intervals of a population. It requires selection of a starting point for a sample and sample size that can be repeated at regular interval. This type of sampling method has a predefined interval and hence the sample technique is the least time consuming. So for example, okay class, count 1 to 54. Okay, so for example, Jose 1, Josepa 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so all now assign even number will be the respondent of my study. And that is systematic sampling. How about the stratified sampling or random sampling? A method where the population can be divided into smaller groups that don't overlap but represent the entire population together. While sampling, this group can be organized and then draw a sample from each group separately. How about the non-probability sampling? It is reliant on a researcher's ability to select members at random. This sampling method is not a fixed or predefined selection process, which makes it difficult for an element of a population to have an equal opportunities to be included in a sample. So, number 1 is purposeful or what we call purposive sampling. It is the common sampling strategy. In this type of sampling, participants are selected or sought based on pre-selected criteria based on the research question. So, as what we have here, we have an example here. No? How about the quota sampling? It is a sampling technique whereby participant quotas are present prior to sampling. Typically, the researcher is attempting to gather data from a certain number of participants that meet certain characteristics that may include things such as age, sex, class, marital status, HIV status, and others. So we have an example also here. Then the snowball sampling. It is also known as chain referral sampling. In this method, the participants refer the researcher to others who may be able to potentially contribute or participate in the study. This method often helps researchers find and recruit participants that may otherwise be hard to search. So the next lesson, lesson number 3 for quarter number 2, in research method, collection of data is included which can be interpreted or analyzed to answer hypotheses. This lesson present data collection in more detail. So in particular, how they work in practice, the purpose of each, when their use is appropriate, and what they can offer in students' individual research. So, of course, number 1, the following were analysis of procedures in collecting data. So, what are the possible procedures for us to collect data? Number 1 is observation. So, this will be the technique of gathering data whereby you personally watch, interact, or communicate with the subject of yours. It is a systematic data collection approach where researchers use all of their sense to examine people in natural setting or natural occurring situations. So, we have classification of observation method. So, this will be the classification of observation method. We have the casual and scientific observation. So, observing the right thing at the right place and also at the right time by the matter of chance or by luck, while scientific observation involves the use of the tools of the measurement. But remember that all the observations are not scientific in nature. Another, of course, is the natural observation. So, involves observing the behavior in a normal setting. No efforts are made to bring any type of chance in the behavior of the observed. Then subjective. The subject refers to the observer, whereas the object refers to the activity or any type of operations that is being observed. Subjective observation involves the observation of the one's own immediate experience, whereas the observation involving observer as an entity apart from the thing being observed are referred to as the objective observation. So for example, you wanted to resolve the issue of the COVID-19, di ba? So therefore, what we're going to do is to have a subjective observations with the patient. Okay? Direct and indirect observation. So indirect method of observation involves studies of mechanical recording of the recording by some of the means like photographic or electronic. On the other hand, no, direct observation is relatively straightforward as compared to the indirect observations. Participant and non-participant observation. So, in participant observations, researcher may interact with participants and become part of their community. But in the non-participant type of observation, no participation of the observer in the activities of the group takes place, and also occurs no relationship between the researcher and in the group. For the structure and unstructured observation, so we have here, when we say structured, works according to a plan and involves specific information of the units. But in the case of unstructured, observer has the freedom to note down what she or he feels is correct and relevant to the point of the study. We have the controlled and uncontrolled observation. For the controlled, the observation made under the influence of some of the external forces, and such observation rarely lead to improvement in the precision of the research result, while uncontrolled are made in the natural environment and reverse to the controlled. So, covert and overt observation. So, covert are when the researcher pretends to be an ordinary member of the group and observe in secret. While the overt are when the researcher tells the group she or he is conducting research. So, therefore, they know they are being observed. Of course, the interview. No? So, in interview, it defined as qualitative research technique which involves conducting intensive individual interviews with a small number of respondents to explore their perspective on a particular idea, program, or situation. So, we have three different formats of interview: structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. Of course, in structured, it consists of a series of predetermined questions that all interviewees answer in the same order. While the unstructured are usually the least reliable from research viewpoint because no questions are prepared prior to the interview and data collection is conducted in an informal manner. The semi-structured interview contains the components of both structured and unstructured interview. The next will be the survey, no? So it is often used to assess thoughts, opinions, and feelings. Okay? So data collection method in survey. So we have self-completion survey. So as you can see here, no? This via mail, email, the internet, or SMS. At present, we are using Google Form, no? Or even the social media like Facebook, no, and others. The next one is interviewer-based survey. So, as face-to-face or telephone surveys generally allow more data to be gathered than self-completion survey and can include the use of more complex questionnaires. And interviews can reduce non-responses by answering respondent queries or concern. And they can often pick up and resolve respondent errors. Face-to-face surveys are usually more expensive than other methodologies. Why? Because of course we need to meet them, for example in a restaurant, no? So since you are the one who asking to answer the survey, so therefore you need to prepare money for their meriendas or sometimes lunch. So that's why it's considered as the most or usually more expensive than other methodologies. Okay, so for lesson number 4, under quarter 2, application of creative design principle for execution. So, by embracing a pragmatic curiosity, you will need to describe and explain each choice made in conceptualizing in conducting the research, because each method is justified in the conduct of its usage in the study at hand. So the answer to the questions, how does it make sense to utilize an ethnography methodology in a study designed to explore the effectiveness of a psychotherapy invention, is here is what I did and why these choices make sense in the context of my study. Without certainty in terms of methodological destiny, researchers are left with the tools of openness and rhetoric when it comes to defending the research choices. So we have 10 steps in qualitative inquiries. So number 1, reflect on what interests you. Number 2, draft statement identifying your preliminary area of interest in justifying its scholarly and or practical importance. Number 3, hone your topic focus. Okay? So consider who, what, when, where, why, and how. Number 4, compose your initial research question or hypothesis. Number 5, we need to define your goals and objectives. So make sure each goals and objective can be justified and evaluated so you can track the progress you are making and identify where problems are arising or where adjustments are being made. Conduct a review of related literature. So it is important for us to conduct, no, a review of related literature and studies. And number 7, develop a research design which allow you to address your research question or hypothesis effectively and efficiently. Conduct a self-assessment in order to determine what strength you have that will be useful in your study and what skill you will need to develop in order to complete your study. Plan, conduct, and manage the study. Okay? So it is important for us to do that, no? Study proposed, study conducted, study reported, study of the studies, and develop an action plan. And of course, compose and submit your report. So depending on the vehicle you will use to report your study, no? So identify the relevant policies and rules governing the form, substance, and submission of the report. So this will be the references, of course. Acosta, Ade, Batachaira, Boyce, Neal, Braceros, Castillo, Chinay, no? Konawe, Driscoll, Hill, Caber, Nogent. Of course, the practical research guide from DepEd, no? Reeves, Civil, and Tovila. And this will be the link, no? So we have actually the books.google.com and others. And of course, we need to thank the Department of Education in the Philippines for providing this type of module. So once again, thank you everyone and Godspeed. So this will be my YouTube account for more lessons related to your research and probability in statistics and other matters actually that maybe you are interested. So God bless. See you on module number 6, quarter